I, 28F, sat across from the travel agent, a wide smile on my face. The brochure for the Hawaiian resort felt smooth in my hands. Pictures of blue water and white sand promised a perfect escape. My husband, Mark, 30M, was next to me. We had been married for exactly 1 week. This was supposed to be the final, happy step before our new life truly began. The agent, a kind woman named Brenda, looked up from her computer. She smiled at us. "Okay, the 2-week beachfront suite is all set for you," she said. "I just need to confirm the names on the booking. It's for 2 adults, correct?" I nodded, feeling a flutter of excitement. "Yes, just the 2 of us," I said. Mark cleared his throat. He shifted in his chair. I felt a small, strange tension come from him. I glanced at him. His smile was gone. It was replaced by a tight, nervous expression. He looked at Brenda, then at me, then back at Brenda. "Actually," Mark said, his voice a little too loud in the quiet office, "there is a small change. We need to add one more person to the booking." Brenda paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. I felt my own smile freeze on my face. My heart did a strange little flip. It was probably a mistake. Maybe he meant to book an excursion for a friend we were meeting there. That had to be it. "Oh," Brenda said. "Is it for the whole 2 weeks?" "Yes," Mark said, not looking at me. "My mother is coming too." The words hung in the air. They felt heavy and sharp, like little stones. I stared at him. I was sure I had heard him wrong. My brain simply could not process what he had just said. My mother is coming too. On our honeymoon. The idea was so completely absurd that I almost laughed. But the look on Mark's face stopped me. He was serious. He was completely, utterly serious. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands felt cold. The beautiful brochure suddenly felt like garbage in my hands. I put it down on the desk very slowly. I could not look at Brenda. I could only look at my husband, the man I had promised to spend my life with just 7 days ago. "What did you say?" I asked. My voice was quiet. It was a whisper. I needed him to repeat it. I needed to be sure. "I said my mom is coming," he said, finally turning to look at me. He tried for a reassuring smile, but it looked more like a grimace. "She is so excited. She has always wanted to see Hawaii." I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. It was so strong it made me feel dizzy. I could not form a complete thought. All I could think was, no, this is not happening. This is a joke, a terrible, terrible joke. "Mark," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "This is our honeymoon." "I know," he said. "And she knows that. She promised she will give us plenty of space. She will get her own room, of course." He said it as if getting her own room was a huge concession. As if that was the one thing that would make this insane idea perfectly normal. I felt a hot anger begin to bubble up inside me. It started in my stomach and spread through my chest. Brenda, the travel agent, looked deeply uncomfortable. She was pretending to be very busy typing something on her computer, but her eyes kept flicking between us. She was witnessing the first major crisis of our new marriage. "I do not want your mother on our honeymoon," I said. The words came out clear and firm. There was no room for misunderstanding. Mark's face fell. He looked genuinely surprised, as if this was the last reaction he expected from me. "Why not?" he asked. "She is my mother. She just wants to be part of our celebration." That was the moment I knew this was not a simple misunderstanding. This was something else entirely. This was a battle for my marriage before it had even begun. I felt a cold resolve settle over me. This was not going to happen. "Brenda," I said, turning to the agent. I gave her a polite, tight smile. "Please do not add a third person to our booking. It will be for 2 adults only." Brenda looked at Mark, then at me. She saw the look in my eyes and nodded quickly. "Of course," she said. 2 adults. I will finalize that for you. Mark looked furious. His face was turning red. Sarah, can we talk about this outside? He hissed. There is nothing to talk about, I said calmly. The booking is for 2 people, my husband and me. That is final. He stood up so quickly that his chair scraped loudly against the floor. He walked out of the office without another word. I stayed behind to pay for the trip. My hands were shaking as I handed Brenda my credit card. My credit card. The one from my own account that I had been saving with for years. I am so sorry about that, I said to her. She gave me a sympathetic look. Do not be sorry, honey, she said softly. You just stand your ground. I walked out of the travel agency and found Mark leaning against our car. He had his arms crossed over his chest. He looked like a petulant child. The ride home was silent. It was a thick, heavy silence, filled with unspoken anger and resentment. I stared out the window, watching the trees and buildings blur past. I could not believe what had just happened. When we got home, the argument exploded. What was that back there? He demanded as soon as the door closed behind us. What was what? I asked, turning to face him. What was me wanting our honeymoon to be just for us? You embarrassed me, he said. You made me look like an idiot in front of that woman. You embarrassed yourself, Mark, I shot back, by suggesting something so completely ridiculous. Who brings their mother on their honeymoon? She is not just some person, Sarah. She is my mother, and she is all alone now that Dad is gone. She just wants to feel included. I took a deep breath. I tried to stay calm. We can include her in our lives in a million other ways, I said. We can have her over for dinner every week. We can take her on a vacation next year, a family vacation. But our honeymoon is sacred. It is for us to start our life together. You are being selfish, he said. The word hit me like a slap. Selfish? I asked, my voice rising. I am being selfish for wanting to be alone with my new husband on our honeymoon? Are you listening to yourself? She already has her bags packed, he said, as if this was some final, unanswerable point. She has been looking forward to this for weeks. Weeks. The word echoed in my mind. For weeks. This was not a last-minute idea. This had been planned. They had talked about it. They had decided. And they had waited until the very last moment to tell me. They had waited until we were in the travel agent's office, thinking I would be too embarrassed to say no. I felt a profound sense of betrayal. It was colder and sharper than the anger. This was not just about Mark being overly attached to his mother. This was about him and his mother, Carol, making a decision about my life, our life, without me. You planned this, I said quietly. You and your mother planned this behind my back. He had the decency to look away. He could not meet my eyes. I was going to tell you, he mumbled. I was just waiting for the right time. The right time? I asked, incredulous. You thought the right time was when we were booking the tickets, so I would have no choice but to agree? Do you have any idea how manipulative that is? It is not manipulative, he insisted. I just knew you would overreact. This is not an overreaction. I was practically shouting now. This is a perfectly normal reaction to a completely insane proposal. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. He was trying to look tired and put upon, as if I was the one being difficult. Look, she is my mom. It is important to me that she is happy. What about my happiness? I asked, my voice cracking. Is my happiness important to you at all? He did not answer. He just stood there, looking at the floor. And in his silence, I got my answer. It was a terrifying, heartbreaking answer. In the contest between his mother's happiness and mine, I was already losing. I walked past him and went into our bedroom. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we had shared for only a week as husband and wife. I felt a deep, chilling dread. This was not just about a vacation. This was about control. This was about my new mother-in-law, Carol, refusing to let her son go. And it was about my new husband letting her do it. A few minutes later, Mark came into the room. He sat next to me on the bed. He tried to take my hand, but I pulled it away. "Sarah, please," he said softly. "Do not be like this. It is just a trip." "No, it is not just a trip," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "It is a sign of what is to come. It is you putting her feelings before mine. It is you and her making decisions for me. I will not live like that, Mark." "You are blowing this way out of proportion," he said, his voice starting to harden again. "It is 2 weeks. She will do her own thing. We will barely see her." I knew that was a lie. Carol would be with us every second, at every meal, on every excursion. She would insert herself into every moment, making sure I knew that she was there first, that she would always be first. "The answer is no," I said. "She is not coming. I have paid for the trip. It is in my name. The booking is for 2 people. She cannot come." He stood up and started pacing the room. "So what am I supposed to tell her?" he demanded. "That my new wife is a selfish brat who will not let her come on vacation?" The insult stung, but I refused to let him see it. I lifted my chin. "You can tell her the truth," I said. "You can tell her that you are going on a honeymoon with your wife. And a honeymoon is for 2 people. You can tell her that you should have discussed it with me first before you made her promises you could not keep." "She is going to be devastated," he said, his voice filled with pity for his mother. "Then you should have thought of that," I replied. I felt no pity for her at all. All I felt was a growing anger at her for putting me in this position, and at my husband for allowing it. The fight went on for hours. It was the same circular argument over and over again. He would say I was being selfish. I would say he was being disrespectful. He would talk about his mother's feelings. I would talk about our marriage. Nothing was resolved. We went to bed that night in stony silence, sleeping on opposite sides of the bed, a huge, cold canyon between us. The next morning, the tension was still there. It was a suffocating blanket over our new home. Mark was quiet and sullen. He barely looked at me as he made coffee. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read the news on my phone. My mind was racing. What was I going to do? Was this the end of my marriage before it even had a chance to begin? My phone buzzed. It was a text from my best friend, Jessica. "How is married life? Ready for Hawaii?" she wrote. I stared at the message. I did not know how to answer. I could not bring myself to tell her the truth. I felt too ashamed, too humiliated. I typed back a simple, "It is great, so excited." It felt like a lie. Mark's phone was on the counter next to the coffee maker. It lit up with a notification. I glanced over. It was a text message from his mother. The preview on the screen was short, but it was enough. I saw my name. I saw a question mark. Curiosity got the better of me. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should not look. But I felt like I was in a fog, and I needed something to clear it. I needed to understand what was really going on. I waited until Mark went into the bathroom to take a shower. My heart was pounding. I walked over to the counter. I picked up his phone. His password was our wedding date. The irony was not lost on me. I opened his messages. The thread with his mother was right at the top. I scrolled up, my hands shaking. I needed to see when this conversation started. It started 3 weeks ago, before we were even married. The first message from Carol read, "Have you thought about where you are taking me for your honeymoon?" I had to read it twice. Me, not us. Me. As if it was a given that she was coming. Mark's reply was, "Haha, very funny. Sarah and I were thinking Hawaii." Carol's response came back instantly. "Perfect. I have always wanted to go. Book me a room with an ocean view. and make sure it connects to yours. It will be like a little family suite." I felt sick to my stomach. A connecting room. She wanted a connecting room on our honeymoon? I kept scrolling. Mark had tried to push back a little. "Mom, I do not know. It is supposed to be our honeymoon, for just the two of us." Carol's reply was a masterclass in manipulation. "Oh, darling, do not be silly. I will not be a bother. Think of me as your tour guide. Besides, you know how nervous I get flying alone. And who will put sunscreen on my back? You cannot let your poor old mother go on vacation all by herself. It would be cruel." He had caved. Of course. He had caved. "Okay, Mom," he had written. "I will talk to Sarah about it." But he never did. The conversation continued for weeks. They discussed flights. They discussed hotels. Carol sent him links to swimsuits she wanted to buy. She talked about the luau's she wanted to attend. It was all there, in black and white. A fully planned 3-person honeymoon. My honeymoon. And I was the last to know. The most recent message, the one that had just come in, was from that morning. "So?" Carol had written. "Did you tell the little princess the good news yet? Is she crying? Let me know when I should book my flight. I have my credit card ready." The little princess. That is what she called me. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. It was so intense it almost made me gasp. She was not just an overbearing mother-in-law. She was malicious. She saw me as an obstacle, a little princess who needed to be put in her place. And my husband was her willing accomplice. I put the phone back on the counter exactly where I found it. I walked back to the table and sat down. My hands were steady now. The shaking was gone. The hurt and confusion were gone. They had been replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I knew exactly what I was dealing with. This was a deliberate, calculated act of sabotage against my marriage. Against me. When Mark came out of the bathroom, dressed for work, I was still sitting at the table. I looked up at him. "We need to talk," I said. My voice was calm and even. He sighed. "Sarah, I do not want to fight anymore. I will talk to my mom. I will try to explain." "No," I said. "You do not need to talk to her. You need to talk to me. You need to tell me the truth." He looked confused. "The truth about what?" "About how long you and your mother have been planning our 3-person honeymoon," I said. The color drained from his face. He knew. He knew that I knew. He did not even bother to ask how. He just stared at me, his mouth slightly open. "Sarah, I can explain," he started. "Can you?" I asked. "Can you explain why you lied to me for weeks? Can you explain why you let your mother plan our honeymoon with you behind my back? Can you explain why she calls me the little princess in her text to you?" He winced at the last part. He looked down at his phone on the counter, then back at me. He looked trapped. "She did not mean it like that," he said weakly. "It is just her sense of humor." "Oh, I am sure it is hilarious," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I am just not laughing. I want to know why, Mark. Why would you do this to me? To us?" He sank into the chair across from me. He looked defeated. "I did not know how to tell you," he said. "I knew you would be mad." "Mad?" I repeated. "I am not mad, Mark. I am heartbroken. I am humiliated. I thought we were a team. But it is clear that the team is you and her, and I am just some outsider you have to manage." "That is not true," he protested. "Is it not?" I countered. "Then why did you lie to me? Why did you conspire with her? This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate deception." He did not have an answer. He just sat there, staring at his hands. I felt a strange sense of detachment. It was like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. The loving, happy man I had married a week ago was gone. In his place was a stranger, a weak man who was more afraid of his mother than he was of losing his wife. "I want you to call her," I said. He looked up, alarmed. Call her now? Yes, now, I said. I want you to put her on speakerphone. And I want you to tell her that she is not coming to Hawaii. You are going to tell her that it is your decision. And you are going to tell her that you are sorry for misleading her. He looked terrified. Sarah, I cannot do that. She will be so upset. I am sure she will be, I said coldly. But you are going to do it anyway. Because you are going to fix the mess you made. Right now. He hesitated. He looked at me, then at the phone, as if he was trying to calculate the path of least resistance. I just stared back at him, my expression unyielding. I was not going to back down. Not an inch. This was my line in the sand. He had to choose. Me or her. He picked up his phone. His hand was trembling slightly. He found her number and pressed the call button. He pushed the speakerphone icon. The phone started to ring. Each ring sounded like a hammer blow in the silent kitchen. Carol answered on the second ring. Her voice was bright and cheerful. Mark, darling, I was just thinking about you. Did you tell her? I watched Mark's face. He swallowed hard. Hi, Mom, he said, his voice strained. What is wrong? She asked immediately. Her cheerful tone vanished. You sound strange. Is she giving you a hard time? Put her on the phone. I will talk to her. No, Mom, Mark said quickly. She is right here. We are both here. I need to tell you something. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What is it? Carol asked, her voice now sharp and suspicious. Mark took a deep breath. It is about the trip, he said. To Hawaii. What about it? She prompted. You cannot come, he said. The words came out in a rush, like he was trying to get them out before he lost his nerve. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could practically feel the shock and anger radiating through the phone. What did you just say to me? Carol finally asked. Her voice was low and dangerous. I said you cannot come on the trip, Mark repeated, a little stronger this time. It is our honeymoon. It is just for me and Sarah. She put you up to this, did not she? Carol snarled. That selfish little brat. I knew she would be trouble. I told you not to marry her. I flinched. Hearing the venom in her voice directed at me was like being doused in ice water. Mark shot me an apologetic look. Mom, this was my decision. He lied. Sarah has nothing to do with it. I should not have promised you could come. It was a mistake. A mistake? She shrieked. I have bought 5 new swimsuits. I have told all my friends I am going to Hawaii. You are going to make me look like a fool. I am sorry, Mark said. We can go on a trip later. Just the 3 of us. Somewhere else. I do not want to go somewhere else, she yelled. I want to go to Hawaii. With my son. You promised me. Then she started to cry. It was not a sad, quiet cry. It was a loud, theatrical wail. It was the sound of a performer who was not getting her way. After everything I have done for you, she sobbed. This is how you repay me? You choose her over your own mother? Mark was crumbling. I could see it in his eyes. He was starting to waver. I knew I had to step in. Carol, I said, my voice clear and steady. This is Sarah. The crying stopped instantly. You, she spat. I might have known. Yes, me, I said. The little princess. The selfish brat. I am the one who is telling you that you are not coming on my honeymoon. And I am the one who is telling you that if you ever speak to me or about me like that again, you will not have a relationship with your son at all. Do you understand me? There was a stunned silence. I had never spoken to her like that before. I had always been polite, deferential, the perfect daughter-in-law. That person was gone. How dare you? She whispered. No, how dare you? I countered. How dare you try to ruin the beginning of our marriage? How dare you manipulate your son and lie to me? You are not coming. That is the end of the discussion. Goodbye, Carol. I reached over and ended the call. The kitchen was silent again. Mark was staring at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and, I thought, a little bit of awe. "I cannot believe you did that," he said. "I cannot believe I had to," I replied. I stood up from the table. "This is not over, Mark. Not by a long shot. We have a lot to talk about when I get home from work." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving him sitting there alone. I got ready for work in a daze. I felt strangely calm. The rage had subsided, leaving a cold, clear purpose in its place. I had won the battle, but I knew the war was just beginning. I had seen the truth. My husband had a second wife, and it was his mother. I had to decide if I was willing to fight her for the rest of my life. All day at work, I could not focus. The conversation from that morning played over and over in my head. Carol's venomous words, Mark's weakness, my own surprising strength. I felt like I had woken up from a long dream. The man I thought I had married was not the man who was sitting at my kitchen table that morning. I called Jessica during my lunch break. I needed to talk to someone who was on my side. I told her everything. The travel agent, the packed bags, the text messages. Her reaction was immediate and fierce. "Oh, honey," she said. "That is not just an overbearing mother-in-law. That is a hostile takeover." "That is what it feels like," I admitted. "What do I do, Jess? I love him, but I cannot live like this." "You did the right thing by confronting them," she said. "You set a boundary, a big fiery one. Now you have to see if he respects it. His next move will tell you everything you need to know about your future." "What if he chooses her?" I asked, the fear creeping back into my voice. "Then he is not the man you thought he was," she said gently. "And it is better to know that now, 1 week in, than 10 years and 3 kids down the line." She was right. I knew she was right. But it was a terrifying thought. The idea of my brand new marriage ending so quickly was devastating. But the idea of spending the next 50 years fighting Carol for my husband's attention was even worse. When I got home that evening, the house was quiet. Mark's car was in the driveway. I took a deep breath and went inside. He was in the living room, sitting on the couch, staring at the blank television screen. He looked up when I came in. His eyes were red. He had been crying. "She will not talk to me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I have called her 10 times. She will not pick up the phone." I felt a flash of irritation. He was not upset about what he had done to me. He was upset that his mother was giving him the silent treatment. His priorities were still crystal clear. "Maybe she needs some time to cool off," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "You do not understand," he said, looking at me with desperation in his eyes. "She has never done this before. No matter how much we argued, she always picked up the phone." "Well, maybe she has never been told no before," I suggested. He shook his head. "This is all my fault," he said. "I should have just told you from the beginning." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "But you did not, and this is the consequence." He stood up and came towards me. "Sarah, I am so sorry," he said, trying to take me in his arms. "I messed up. I know I did. I was just trying to keep everyone happy." I stepped back, avoiding his embrace. "No, Mark," I said. "You were trying to keep your mother happy. My happiness was not even a consideration." "That is not true," he pleaded. "Is it not?" I asked. "Let's be honest. If I had not found those text messages, you would have kept pushing until I gave in. You would have let her come. You would have let her ruin our honeymoon, just to avoid upsetting her. Am I wrong?" He looked at the floor. He could not deny it. "I did not think so," I said. "This is the problem, Mark. You are so afraid of her being unhappy that you are willing to sacrifice my happiness to prevent it. That is not a marriage. That is a hostage situation." "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice filled with despair. "She is my mother." "I am your wife," I said. "When you married me, you promised to put me first. You promised that we would be a team, a family, you and me. That does not mean you abandon your mother, but it does mean that our marriage comes first. Our decisions come first. Our life comes first. And right now, it does not feel like that at all. He sank back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I do not know what to do, he mumbled. I looked at him, and for the first time, I did not feel anger or hurt. I felt a profound sense of pity. He was a man trapped between two women, but he was the one who had set the trap. Here is what you are going to do, I said, my voice firm. You are going to let her be mad. You are going to let her give you the silent treatment. You are not going to call her. You are not going to text her. You are not going to go over there and apologize for something that was your mistake to begin with. You are going to wait for her to call you. And when she does, you are going to calmly tell her that you love her, but that your wife comes first. And if she cannot accept that, then you will have to reevaluate your relationship with her. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. I cannot do that, he whispered. She will never forgive me. Then we have a much bigger problem than a ruined honeymoon, I said. I turned and walked towards our bedroom. I am going to pack, I said over my shoulder. Pack? He asked, jumping up from the couch. Where are you going? I am going to my mother's house, I said. I need some space. I need to think about whether I can be in a marriage with 3 people in it. Sarah, no, please, he begged, following me into the bedroom. Do not leave. We can fix this. Can we? I asked, pulling my suitcase out of the closet. How, Mark? How do we fix the fact that you lied to me? How do we fix the fact that you value her feelings more than mine? How do we fix the fact that you do not seem to understand what a marriage is supposed to be? I started pulling clothes out of my drawers and throwing them into the suitcase. He just stood there, watching me, his face a mask of misery. He did not try to stop me. He did not have any answers to my questions. When my bag was packed, I walked to the front door. He followed me like a lost puppy. I love you, he said, his voice breaking. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. I turned to look at him. I love you too, Mark, I said, but right now that is not enough. I walked out the door and closed it behind me. I did not look back. My mother's house was a refuge. She opened the door and took one look at my face and my suitcase and pulled me into a hug. She did not ask any questions. She just held me while I cried. Later that evening, I told her the whole story. She listened patiently, her expression growing more and more grim. That woman is a piece of work, she said when I was finished. And your husband is a coward. It was harsh, but it was the truth. What do I do, Mom? I asked. You do exactly what you are doing, she said. You give him space to figure out who he is married to. If he is the man you thought he was, he will come to his senses. He will fight for you. If he is not, then you have your answer. The next few days were agonizing. I did not hear from Mark. I checked my phone constantly, hoping for a text, a call, anything. But there was nothing. I started to despair. Maybe he had chosen her. Maybe he had gone running back to his mother, apologizing and begging for her forgiveness. The thought made me feel hollow inside. Jessica called me every day. She was my rock. Stay strong, she told me. Do not call him. This is his test to pass, not yours. On the 4th day, I got a text. It was from a number I did not recognize. This is Linda, it read. Mark's aunt. Can we talk? Linda was Mark's father's sister. I had only met her a few times, at the wedding and a few family dinners. She had always been kind to me, but we were not close. I was hesitant to respond. I did not want to be drawn into more family drama. But something told me I should talk to her. This is Sarah, I texted back. I can talk now. My phone rang almost immediately. It was her. Sarah, dear, she said, her voice warm and kind. I am so sorry to bother you. I heard you and Mark are having some trouble. You could say that, I said wryly. I am calling because I think I know what is going on, she said, and I think you deserve to know the truth about Carol. I sat up straighter. What truth? My brother, Mark's father, was a wonderful man, she began. But he was not blind. He saw how Carol was with Mark, how she smothered him, how she controlled him. He worried about it all the time. He was afraid that she would never let him grow up and have a life of his own. She paused, and I could hear her take a deep breath. Before he died, he did something about it. He set up a trust for Mark, a very substantial one, but it came with a condition. I held my breath. What condition? The trust is managed by me, Linda said, and the will is very specific. It states that Mark only gets full access to the money when he is, and I quote, happily and independently married for a period of 5 years. It also has a clause, a very important one. It says that if, at any point, Carol is found to be unduly interfering in his marriage, or if Mark is found to be prioritizing his mother's demands over the well-being of his marriage, then a significant portion of the trust is to be immediately donated to charity. My brother's favorite charity, a children's hospital. I was speechless. I could not believe what I was hearing. Carol knows about this clause, Linda continued. She fought it tooth and nail when the will was read. She tried to have it thrown out. But my brother's lawyers were very good. It is ironclad. She has spent the last 5 years trying to control Mark without appearing to control him. She has been walking a very fine line. Suddenly, everything made sense. Her desperation, her manipulation. It was not just about not wanting to lose her son. It was about money. A lot of money. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my mind reeling. Because Carol called me yesterday, Linda said. She was hysterical. She told me some story about how you were trying to keep her from her son. She was trying to feel me out, to see if I would side with her. She was trying to see if she could trigger the clause and blame it on you. What did you say? I asked. I told her I would look into it, Linda said. And I have. I spoke to Mark this morning. He told me everything. The whole sordid tale about the honeymoon. He is a mess, Sarah. He knows he messed up. He is just terrified of his mother. He should be terrified of losing his wife, I said. A new anger building inside me. This was not just about a mother and son. This was about greed. I agree, Linda said. And that is why I am calling you. I am the executor of the trust. I have the power to make a judgment call. Carol's behavior, in my opinion, constitutes undue interference. And Mark's behavior constitutes prioritizing his mother over his marriage. I am prepared to enact the clause in the will. You would do that? I asked, stunned. My brother wanted his son to be happy, she said. He wanted him to be free. This money was meant to be a gift, not a leash. Carol has turned it into a weapon. I think it is time that weapon was taken out of her hands. What would happen? I asked. A large portion of the money would go to the children's hospital, she explained. Mark would still have a comfortable inheritance, but it would be significantly less. And Carol would lose her leverage over him. He would finally be free to make his own choices. I was silent for a long moment, processing everything she had told me. This was a huge decision. It would change everything. I need you to be on board, Sarah, Linda said. I will not do it without your consent. This is your marriage, your life. I thought about Mark. I thought about Carol. I thought about the little princess comment. I thought about the years of manipulation and control that had led to this moment. And I thought about the future. A future where my husband was not a puppet, and my mother-in-law was not a puppeteer. Do it, I said. My voice was firm. Do it. Linda let out a long sigh of relief. Thank you, Sarah, she said. I think you're doing the right thing. For everyone. After I hung up with Linda, I sat on my mother's couch for a long time. The final pieces of the puzzle had clicked into place. Carol was not just a narcissist. She was a greedy, manipulative woman who was willing to destroy her son's happiness for money. And Mark was not just weak. He was a victim of a lifetime of emotional and financial blackmail. It did not excuse his behavior. He had still lied to me. He had still betrayed my trust. But now, at least, I understood why. Later that day, Mark showed up at my mother's house. He looked terrible. He had not shaved, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He was holding a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. My mother answered the door. She looked at him with a stony expression. "She does not want to see you," she said. "Please," he begged. "I just need to talk to her." I had heard his voice from the living room. I walked to the door. "It is okay, Mom," I said. "I will talk to him." We sat in the backyard. It was a cool evening and the sun was starting to set. He did not say anything for a long time. He just stared at the flowers in his hands. "Aunt Linda called me," he said finally. "I know," I said. "She called me too." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a desperate hope. "Did she tell you?" "She told me everything," I said. "About the trust, about the clause, about your father." He nodded, looking down at the ground again. "I am so ashamed," he whispered. "I should have told you. I should have been honest from the start." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "Why did you not? Mark, why did you let her have so much power over you?" He sighed. "It is all I have ever known," he said. "After my dad died, she just clung to me. She made me feel like I was all she had, like her happiness depended entirely on me. And the money, it was always there. She never said it out loud, but I always knew. If I did not do what she wanted, she would find a way to make it seem like I was failing my dad's wishes. She would threaten in her own little ways to make Linda think I was being a bad son." "So you lied to me," I said flatly. "You chose to betray me to keep her happy and to protect your inheritance." "I did not think of it like that," he said, looking up at me, his eyes pleading. "I was just trying to survive. I was trying to juggle everything, and I dropped all the balls. I know I hurt you, Sarah. And I hate myself for it. I was a coward. And I am so, so sorry." He finally looked me in the eye. I saw genuine remorse there. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I saw the man I had married. The kind, loving man who was trapped in an impossible situation. "Linda is going to enact the clause," I said. He nodded. "I know. She told me. She said she had your blessing." "She did," I confirmed. "Good," he said, and a small, sad smile touched his lips. "It is for the best. Maybe now. Maybe now I can finally be free." We sat in silence for a while longer, watching the sky turn from pink to purple. "I love you, Sarah," he said quietly. "I know I have a lot to do to earn back your trust, but I am willing to do it. I will go to therapy. We can go to couples counseling. I will do whatever it takes. I do not want to lose you. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me." I looked at him. I saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of losing me. And for the first time, I knew it was greater than his fear of his mother. Something had shifted. The power dynamic had been broken. "I am not making any promises," I said. "You have broken something, Mark, and I do not know if it can be fixed." "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just give me a chance to try." I thought about it. I thought about the life we were supposed to have. The life that had been hijacked by his mother's greed. Maybe now, with the money out of the picture, we had a chance. A real chance. "Okay, Mark," I said. "You can come home. We can try." The look of relief that washed over his face was so profound, it almost made me cry. He stood up and pulled me into his arms. This time, I did not pull away. I let him hold me. It felt fragile, tentative, but it felt like a beginning. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Linda was true to her word. She contacted the lawyers for the estate and started the process of enacting the clause. A very large check was written to the children's hospital in Mark's father's name. Carol, as you can imagine, did not take it well. She called Mark, screaming and crying. She called him a traitor. She said he had betrayed his father's memory. She said I had brainwashed him. She said she was disowning him. Mark, for the first time in his life, did not try to calm her down. He did not apologize. He just listened. When she was finished with her tirade, he said very calmly, "I love you, Mom, but Sarah is my wife. She is my priority. When you are ready to accept that, you know my number." Then he hung up. He told me about the call later that evening. He seemed lighter, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "I think I am finally free," he said. We canceled the trip to Hawaii. It felt tainted. We decided to use the money to go on a simple road trip instead, just the two of us. We drove up the coast, staying in small motels and eating at local diners. We talked for hours. We reconnected. We started to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It was not easy. There were times when I would look at him and remember the lie, the betrayal, and I would feel a flash of anger. But he was patient. He let me be angry. He answered all my questions. He never got defensive. He was doing the work. He was showing me, with his actions, that he had changed. We started going to couples therapy. Our therapist helped us develop tools to communicate better. She helped Mark see the patterns of manipulation he had grown up with. And she helped me learn to trust him again. Carol did not speak to us for 6 months. We heard through Linda that she had told everyone in the family that I was a gold digger who had stolen her son's inheritance. But Linda had made sure everyone knew the real story. Most of the family sided with us. They had seen Carol's behavior for years and were glad that she was finally getting her comeuppance. One day, about a year after the honeymoon incident, Carol showed up at our door. She looked older, tired. The fight had gone out of her. "I want to see my son," she said to me. Her voice was flat. I let her in. Mark was in the living room. He was surprised to see her. They talked for a long time. I gave them their privacy. I do not know everything they said. But when she left, Mark told me she had apologized. A real, genuine apology. She had admitted that she was wrong. She had admitted that she was afraid of being alone. Our relationship with her is different now. It is distant, polite. We see her on holidays. We keep the conversations light. The old power she had over Mark is gone. He is no longer afraid of her. And she knows it. Our marriage is stronger than ever. In a strange way, the honeymoon crisis was the best thing that could have happened to us. It forced us to confront the biggest issue in our relationship head-on. It forced Mark to grow up. And it forced me to find a strength I did not know I had. We never did go to Hawaii. Maybe one day we will. But for now, we are happy right where we are. We are a team, just the two of us. And that is all the paradise I need. The process of rebuilding was slow. It was not a single conversation, but hundreds of them. In the beginning, I felt like a detective in my own marriage, constantly looking for clues that he was falling back into his old habits. A long phone call with his mother would send a spike of anxiety through me. If he seemed distant, I would immediately assume he was hiding something. "Who is that?" I asked one evening, trying to sound casual as he hung up the phone. "It was just my mom," he said. He saw the flicker of tension in my eyes. He immediately sat down next to me on the couch and turned to face me. She wanted to know if we were coming for dinner on Sunday. I told her we had plans, but that I would call her next week to figure something out. "You did not agree to go?" I asked, a little surprised. "No," he said, shaking his head. "We have our plans. I am not changing them. I told you you and our life together come first. I meant it." It was a small thing, but it was huge. The old Mark would have immediately said yes to her, and then spent the next 3 days trying to convince me to cancel my plans with Jessica. The new Mark was setting boundaries. He was protecting our time, protecting us. I felt a little of the tightness in my chest loosen. Okay, I said. Thank you for telling me. I will always tell you, he promised. No more secrets. Ever. The therapy sessions were incredibly helpful. Our therapist, Dr. Miller, was a no-nonsense woman who saw right through Mark's people-pleasing tendencies. Mark, she said in one of our early sessions, your job is not to make your mother happy. Your job is to be a good husband. The two are not always compatible, especially given your family history. He struggled with that concept. But I love my mom, he would say. I do want her to be happy. Of course you do, Dr. Miller would reply. But her happiness is her responsibility, not yours. You have been trained since birth to be her emotional support animal. It is time to retire from that role. The phrase, emotional support animal, really hit him hard. He came home from that session looking thoughtful. Is that what I was? He asked me later that night. Sometimes, I said honestly. It felt like you were so busy managing her emotions that you had no energy left for mine. He nodded slowly. I never saw it that way, he admitted. I just thought I was being a good son. You can be a good son without being a subservient one, I said. That was a turning point for him. He started to see his relationship with his mother not as one of love and duty, but as one of obligation and fear. He started to untangle the threads of manipulation that had bound him for so long. My own healing took time. I had to learn to trust again. I had to believe that the changes I was seeing in him were real, and not just a temporary performance to get me to stay. There were days when I was full of doubt. Days when I wanted to run away and start over with someone who did not have so much baggage. On those days, I would call Jessica. I do not know if I can do this, I would tell her. It is so much work. Marriage is work, she would remind me. But is he doing the work with you? Yes, I would have to admit. He is. Then it is worth it, she would say. Give it time. And I did. I gave it time. And slowly, day by day, things got better. The good days started to outnumber the bad. The moments of trust started to outweigh the moments of doubt. We started to laugh again. We started to feel like a married couple again. A real one. The financial aspect was also a huge change. Without the promise of a massive inheritance, Mark's relationship with money changed. He had always been a little careless with it, knowing he had a huge safety net. Now, that net was gone. We had to rely on our own salaries. We had to make a budget. We had to be a team. I think this is the best thing that could have happened to us, he said one night as we were paying bills together at the kitchen table. I feel like a real adult for the first time in my life. I smiled. Me too, I said. Aunt Linda became a good friend. We would have lunch with her every few months. She was always so happy to see us together. You saved him, you know, she told me once when Mark was in the restroom. I did not save him, I said. He saved himself. I just gave him the reason to do it. Well, whatever it was, my brother would be so proud, she said, her eyes tearing up a little. This is all he ever wanted for his son. We decided to finally take a real honeymoon on our first anniversary. We did not go to Hawaii. We went to a quiet cabin in the mountains. There was no cell service, no internet, just us, a fireplace, and the snow falling outside. On our last night there, Mark gave me a small box. Inside was a beautiful, simple necklace. I know I can never make up for what happened last year, he said, his voice soft. But I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying. I will spend the rest of my life choosing you. Every single day. I put on the necklace. It felt cool against my skin. I know you will, I said. And for the first time, I believed it with my whole heart. The doubt was gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was love. A stronger, more honest love than we had ever had before. We had built a new foundation for our marriage, a foundation built not on promises and expectations, but on honesty, respect, and hard work. It was not the fairy tale I had imagined, but it was something better. It was real, and it was ours. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had not said no in that travel agent's office. If I had been too scared or too embarrassed to speak up. I imagine that 3-person honeymoon, the constant tension, the passive-aggressive comments from Carol, the way she would have put her hand on Mark's arm, claiming him as hers, the way he would have let her, trying to keep the peace. I imagine the resentment building inside me, a slow poison. I imagine us coming home, not as a newly married couple in love, but as 2 people on opposite sides of a silent war, with his mother as the victorious general. Our marriage would have been over before it began. It would have withered and died under the shadow of her control. Saying no was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most important. It was the moment I chose myself. It was the moment I declared that I was worth more than being a silent partner in my own life. I learned a lot about myself that year. I learned that I am stronger than I thought. I learned that I can set boundaries and enforce them. I learned that it is okay to fight for my own happiness. And I learned a lot about Mark. I learned that he is not perfect. He is flawed and complicated, but he is also brave and resilient. He was willing to face his demons and do the hard work of changing. He was willing to fight for our marriage. And for that, I will always be grateful. Our life is quiet now, peaceful. We have dinner with my mom once a week. We see Jessica and her husband on the weekends. We are saving up to buy a house. A small one with a little yard for a dog. It is a simple life, but it is our life. A life that we built together, on our own terms. Every now and then, I will touch the necklace Mark gave me. It is a reminder. A reminder of how far we have come. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things are born from the most difficult trials. And a reminder that true love is not about grand gestures or perfect honeymoons. It is about choosing each other, day after day, no matter what. And that is a choice I will happily make for the rest of my life. The first holiday season after the incident was a true test. Thanksgiving was approaching, and the unspoken question of where we would spend it hung in the air. Traditionally, Mark's family had a large gathering at Carol's house. I was dreading it. I was not ready to face her, and I was not ready to be in her space. One evening, Mark brought it up. "So, Thanksgiving," he said, his tone careful. "I was thinking we could host this year. Just a small thing. Your mom, Jessica and her husband, and maybe Aunt Linda." I looked at him, surprised and relieved. "What about your mom?" I asked. "I will call her and wish her a happy Thanksgiving," he said. "But I think it is important for us to start our own traditions, in our own home, on our own terms." This was a massive step. He was not just reacting to his mother's control anymore. He was proactively building a life separate from it. He was creating a new center of gravity for our family, and it was centered on us. "I would love that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I walked over and hugged him. "I would love that very much." Hosting our first Thanksgiving was chaotic and wonderful. Our small apartment was crowded and noisy. The turkey was a little dry, and the gravy was a little lumpy, but no one cared. The room was filled with laughter and love. It felt right. It felt like home. Mark did call his mother that day. I was in the kitchen, so I did not hear the conversation, but he told me about it later. "How did it go?" I asked, a little nervous. "It was okay," he said. "She was a little cold. She tried to guilt trip me a little. Said she was all alone." "She was not alone," I pointed out. "Linda told me that most of the cousins were still going to her house." "I know," he said with a sigh. And I told her that. I told her I was sorry she was disappointed, but that it was important for Sarah and me to have our own celebration this year. She did not like it, but she accepted it. He paused, then looked at me. "And you know what? I did not feel guilty. For the first time, I did not let her disappointment become my problem. I squeezed his hand. I am so proud of you, I said. It was a slow process, but we were untangling ourselves from her web, one thread at a time. The power she held was not just financial, it was emotional. And every boundary Mark set, every time he chose our new family unit over his old one, he chipped away at that emotional power. We continued with therapy, both individually and together. I worked on my anger and my lingering trust issues. It was hard to admit that I was still scared, that a part of me was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It is like a form of trauma, Dr. Miller explained to me in a solo session. You experienced a significant betrayal at a time when you were supposed to feel the most secure. Your brain is now wired to look for threats. It will take time to convince it that you are safe now. Mark worked on building his self-esteem and his identity outside of his role as Carol's son. He took up new hobbies. He reconnected with old friends he had drifted away from because his mother did not approve of them. He started to become his own person, separate from her influence. It was amazing to watch. He was lighter, happier, and more confident than I had ever seen him. Our second anniversary arrived. We had been saving diligently and decided we were ready for a real vacation. Where do you want to go? He asked me one night. Anywhere in the world. I smiled. You know, I said, I think I am finally ready for Hawaii. He looked surprised. Really? Are you sure? Yes, I said. I do not want her to have that power. I do not want her to have ruined Hawaii for us forever. I want to go and make new memories. Our memories. His face broke into a huge grin. Okay, he said. Let's do it. We booked the trip. This time there was no drama, no secrets. Just two people excited for their vacation. The trip was everything the first one was supposed to be. We swam in the ocean. We drank cocktails on the beach. We went hiking and saw beautiful waterfalls. We were completely and totally alone, together. On our last night, we were sitting on the balcony of our hotel room watching the sunset. Thank you, Mark said quietly. For what? I asked. For not giving up on me, he said, his eyes shining. For giving me a second chance. For showing me what a real partnership looks like. Thank you for being worth the second chance, I replied. We had come full circle. We were in the place that had almost destroyed us, but we were not the same people. We were stronger, wiser, more in love than ever. The ghosts of the past had been banished. We had faced the storm and come out the other side, holding hands. Life continued. We bought our little house with the yard. We got a goofy golden retriever who chewed up all our shoes. We argued about who was going to do the dishes and what to watch on television. We were a normal, boring, happy married couple. And it was wonderful. Carol eventually settled into her new role as a grandmother from a distance. When we had our first child, a daughter, she sent a gift and a card. She asked if she could visit. Mark and I discussed it at length. We were a team now, and we made all decisions together. I think we should let her, I said, surprising even myself. But on our terms. She can stay in a hotel. She can visit for a few hours at a time. And the first time she says anything manipulative or critical, the visit is over. Mark agreed. The visit was awkward, but civil. Carol was surprisingly well behaved. She held her granddaughter and cried a little. I think in that moment she finally understood what she had almost lost. Not just money, but a family. A future. Our life is not a fairy tale. It is messy and complicated, like all lives are. But it is a good life. It is a life we fought for. And it is a life I would not trade for anything. Looking back, the woman who sat in that travel agent's office feels like a different person. She was naive. She was trusting. She thought that love was all you needed. The woman I am today knows better. Love is the foundation, but it is not the whole house. You need trust, respect, and communication. You need to build it together, brick by brick. And sometimes you have to tear down the old, rotten parts before you can build something new and strong. Our house is built on solid ground now, and from our window, I can see a future filled with possibility. A future that we get to choose together. The only bags that matter now are the ones we pack for our own adventures. And we always pack for two. The years that followed were defined by a quiet, steady peace. Our daughter, Lily, grew from a tiny baby into a curious toddler, then a talkative little girl. Mark was a wonderful father. He was patient and kind, completely devoted to her. Watching him with Lily healed a part of me I did not even know was still broken. He was everything his own father would have wanted him to be. A loving, present, and independent man. Carol's visits remained infrequent and carefully managed. She seemed to understand the new rules of engagement. The old fire and manipulation were gone, replaced by a kind of weary resignation. She was a grandmother, but she was not the matriarch. She had lost that title, and she knew it. She never overstepped. She never tried to offer unsolicited advice or criticize my parenting. It was as if she was on her best behavior, perpetually afraid of having her visiting privileges revoked. In a way, it was sad. She had traded a real, messy, loving relationship with her son for a few years of control, and now she was left with this polite, superficial connection. She had gotten what she deserved, but it was a lonely prize. Aunt Linda remained a constant, positive presence in our lives. She was Lily's favorite great-aunt, the one who always brought the best presents and told the best stories. She never spoke of the trust or the inheritance again. It was in the past. But her unwavering support during that dark time had forged a bond between us that I cherished. She was more of a mother to me than Carol had ever been. One day, when Lily was about 5 years old, we were cleaning out the attic. I came across a box of old photos from our wedding. I sat down on the dusty floor and started looking through them. There were pictures of me and Mark, young and beaming, full of hope and blissful ignorance. There was a picture of me with Jessica, both of us laughing. And then I found one of Mark and Carol. She was looking at him with an expression of fierce possession. Her hand was gripping his arm tightly. He was smiling at the camera, but he looked stiff, uncomfortable. Even then, before I knew anything, the signs were there. I had just been too in love to see them. Mark came up into the attic carrying a box of old clothes. He saw what I was looking at. "Remember that day?" he asked, sitting down next to me. "I do," I said. "We were so young." He picked up the photo of him and his mother. He stared at it for a long time. "I was so scared that day," he confessed. "I was so happy to be marrying you. But I was terrified of what she would do, how she would react. I spent the whole day trying to manage her, to make sure she did not cause a scene." "You did not have to do that," I said softly. "I know that now," he said, putting the photo back in the box. It took me a long time to learn that her emotions are not my responsibility. He turned to me and took my hand. "My only responsibility is to you and to Lily, to our family." It was a simple statement, but it held the weight of everything we had been through. The fights, the therapy, the years of hard work. It was the core truth of our marriage now. A few months later, we got a call from Linda. Carol had had a stroke. It was serious. We drove to the hospital immediately. She was in the ICU, unconscious. The doctors were not optimistic. We sat by her bedside for hours. Mark held her hand and talked to her, telling her about Lily's first day of school, about the new dog we had just adopted. He did not talk about the past. He did not talk about the anger or the hurt. He was just a son, sitting with his mother at the end of her life. I watched him, and my heart ached for him. For the little boy who had spent his whole life trying to win the approval of a woman who was incapable of giving it unconditionally. For the man who had had to break himself free from her in order to find himself. Carol passed away 2 days later without ever regaining consciousness. The funeral was small. Family and a few of her old friends. Mark gave a short, simple eulogy. He spoke of her love for gardening and her terrible singing voice. He spoke of the good memories, the happy times from his childhood. He did not mention the darkness. He did not need to. Everyone there knew. After the funeral, Linda gave Mark a letter. It was from his mother. She had written it a few years ago and given it to Linda to hold on to. "I think she wanted you to have this after she was gone," Linda said. Later that evening, after Lily was asleep, Mark read the letter out loud to me. It was not an apology. Not really. It was more of a confession. She wrote about how terrified she was after her husband died. How she had latched onto Mark because she was afraid of being alone. She wrote about the money, and how she had come to see it as a way of keeping him close, of ensuring he would never leave her. She admitted that she had been jealous of me, of the life he was building with me. "I did not know how to love you without controlling you," she wrote. "And I am sorry for that. I am sorry for the pain I caused. I hope one day you can forgive me." Mark folded the letter and put it on the table. He was quiet for a long time. "Can you?" I asked gently. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a complex mix of grief and relief. "I think I already have," he said. "I think I forgave her a long time ago. Not for her, but for me. I had to let it go so I could move on." He stood up and pulled me into a hug. "It is over," he whispered into my hair. "It is finally, truly over." And he was right. The final thread had been cut. The last ghost had been laid to rest. We were free. Our life since then has been beautifully, wonderfully ordinary. We are a family. We have our struggles and our triumphs, just like everyone else. But we face them together, as a team, as partners. Every year on our anniversary, we go back to that cabin in the mountains. It has become our sacred place, a place to reconnect and remember, a place to celebrate the life we have built, the life we almost lost. I often think about the lesson that terrible experience taught me. It taught me that you cannot build a healthy relationship on a rotten foundation. You have to be willing to tear it all down and start again. It is hard, painful work, but it is worth it. Our marriage is not a fairy tale. It is a testament to the power of second chances. It is a story of forgiveness, of growth, and of a love that was strong enough to survive the fire and come out stronger on the other side. And for that, I will be forever grateful. The journey was difficult, but it led us home.